We first heard, Adrian, of the Solidarity Fund in March, and that was in response to the advent of COVID-19 globally. But it was decided to be launched in South Africa. And I just wanted to find out from you what the purpose of it was and what the specific mandate of the Solidarity Fund is.
Thanks very much, Palesa, and thanks, Sharon, for hosting us again on this webinar. The Solidarity Fund was initiated to unite all of South Africa in the fight against COVID-19. It was set up as an independent entity, and I think this is very important to stress for everyone because there's been a lot of confusion. A lot of people think that the Solidarity Fund is part of government, it's one of the government funds that's caught up in PPE corruption and all the rest of it. But actually, it's an entirely separate independent entity. It's a separate not-for-profit company. It was established by business and government together with the idea that it would create a single initiative to help mobilize resources in society, mobilize South Africans, both to contribute personally and to be part of the fight against COVID-19, but also to help with the necessary kind of behavioral changes that would be needed as we move through the crisis. So the fund was set up with pro bono support from individuals and businesses. It has an independent board, mainly of business people, but also it has 2 ministers on the board. It has someone from civil society, someone from the trade union movement. So it's an organization that represents all of society, but it's maintained with the highest governance principles of the private sector. And we take our responsibility of managing resources on behalf of all South Africans. We have had over 300,000 South Africans contribute to us, over 2,200 companies and trusts. So managing those funds and making sure that we have the biggest possible impact that we can have on this crisis is obviously kind of front and center for us.
Even the Solidarity Fund itself, I know as individuals, people can contribute to the fund as well as organizations. So it's really sort of that mechanism that has brought the country together to create change together. So Adrian, you spoke a lot about corporate governance and also the independence of the fund itself. Who are some of the partners that you work with in terms of monitoring, checking and validating delivery and assistance to households across the country?
We have a number of partners. Firstly, just to say, Palesa, there are probably 80 people who work full-time at the fund, all pro bono. All these services provided by all the companies that support the fund have been pro bono. We haven't spent a single cent in the last 6 or 7 months since we started on anything but kind of direct impact initiatives that I described. The organization, we've got a number of companies that support us. We have Edward Nathan Sonnenbergs who do all the legal support for us. Deloitte are external auditors. Old Mutual do our fund administration. Inside the organization, we have EY who support with a lot of the operational and organizational infrastructure. So there are a number of companies there are probably 15 companies in total that are providing these kind of services to us. We have an internal audit team. And as I said early on, we take the responsibility of spending this money with huge seriousness and make sure that the governance processes we follow of the highest possible standard. There have been, I think, some valid criticisms of the extent of disclosure that we've had on our website about some of our activities, and I think that's really just a function of time. We're completely committed to total transparency about where all our money is coming from and where it gets spent, and to account for all of that and the impact that we have to all of our stakeholders. We're a fund that is accountable and responsible to all of South Africa and all South Africans. But because we kind of in process and, this team of people, I tell you, people are working 12, 14 hours a day on trying, all the things that I described. Just the process of identifying these beneficiaries, the contracting, the management of these processes is hugely time intensive. But absolutely, there will be full accountability for where all the funds have been spent, and also full, and we have sought to do this through our website, full disclosure as to how we make our decisions, how decisions are made as to where funds are prioritized.
I have seen on your website that you've actually got sort of a it's not a timer, but something that basically displays how much you've raised thus far and the areas that you've actually impacted. So I think that is also a step in terms of transparency and gives people comfort, because I know some of the activities have also been staff members from different organizations sort of clubbing together as part of their salary packages to donate to the fund. So I think overall, you have done quite a great job in terms of transparency. And it is a pity that, you are met with some of the fake news or some of the associations that come with the PP scandals that we're currently experiencing in the country. I think just to sort of tie that matter up and put it to rest, how do you plan to continue to remain transparent as an organization? And how do you deal with the fake news that comes about when it comes to scandal and corruption in South Africa?
I mean, it's very difficult, Melissa. I mean, we try and respond as best we can. I think one of the challenges we faced is that whenever there's a scandal, a government scandal, reference is made to government solidarity funds, in small s, small f, and that is, immediately associated with us. And it's very hard to respond to all of these issues. In addition to that, often you've got like incorrect titles of articles. And whenever we see this, we try and correct it. We're in social media. I mean, personally, I phone journalists and, when they make these mistakes, and often these mistakes are kind of made not, there's no ill intent. I mean, it's just a lack of understanding of the distinction and the fact that we are kind of independent. So we try to emphasize that whenever we get the opportunity, but it is difficult. I think it's also difficult because, there's such anger about, in particular, corruption related to COVID efforts. And so we kind of get caught up in that anger, unfortunately. But it is something that we intend to do. I mean, one of the things that I think we are intending to do is to accelerate the reporting on where all the money is going, so that people can see, who we contracted to, what was spent with them, what is the impact that we've had. I mean, we have nothing to hide on any of this stuff. So, it really has just been a question of committing resources to making sure we do that. And also, presenting that in a way which is accessible for people, so that you don't just have hundreds of pages of reports that people have to wade through, make it very accessible so people can really look at it and understand it very easily.
Absolutely. Okay, great.
Question that you asked about
government influence on your decisions.
Government influence. I mean, this is something that's also often kind of very misunderstood, because we have two government ministers on the board, and because the president announced the formation of the fund, everyone, thinks this is a government fund. I mean, the government has no influence at all in our disbursement decisions. I mean, we do work in the health response, and I mentioned this on the chat. We do work with the National Department of Health to understand where are the greatest needs, because obviously we don't want to create our own health response and be making decisions ourselves about, we think we should be building, a field hospital in the Eastern Cape, because we have no line of sight as to where are the biggest needs in the health system and what needs to be directed where. Both what are the biggest needs and where are they? And because that's obviously also shifting as time goes on. So we get that input from them, but our disbursements process is a process that's entirely independent of government. There's no engagement with government at all in our internal processes around what disbursements we make. So there's no influence that's brought to bear on how we choose to spend our money.